I'm just kidding. Did you try and turn up your volume? Ah, gotcha. We need to get back to regular school because I'm going a little crazy. Okay, today we are going to be reading Island of the Blue Dolphins, chapter 22 and 23. They're both pretty short chapters. So we're going to combine them, do two chapters today. So, where did we leave off? Karana has been on the island with Rontu now for quite a long time, just the two of them. So Karana is the only person, and she's very much alone. She has her dog, which is her friend. So Karana and Rontu are on the island for a long time. The Aleuts had returned. Karana was scared, and so she went to her second home to hide from them. And while she was hiding, she actually saw another girl. And so eventually Karana kind of comes out and they see each other and they kind of talk. They're not really friends, but they're friendly. So anyway, they don't speak the same language, but they share a couple of words. They kind of talk. So anyway, I think that you're going to enjoy this chapter here. So we're going to go ahead and get started with chapter 22. So I have shared this document with you, but you can follow along with me as well. So, chapter 22. I did not go into the cave, nor did I take the necklace from the rock. That night I slept on the headland at the place where I had left my baskets. At dawn, I went back to the ravine. There I hid myself on a brushy ledge. It was near the spring, and from it I could see the mouth of the cave. The sun rose and shone through the ravine. I could see the necklace lying on the rock. The stones looked blacker than they had in the darkness, and there were many of them. I wanted to go down to the cave to count them, to see if they would make 2 loops around my neck. But I did not leave the ledge. I stayed there all morning. The sun was high when Rontu barked, and I heard steps below me. The girl came out of the brush singing. She walked to the cave, but when she saw the necklace lying on the rock, she grew quiet. She picked up the necklace, put it down again, peered into the mouth of the cave. 2 of my baskets were still there. Then she went and drank from the spring and started off through the brush. I jumped to my feet. "Tutok!" I cried, running down the ravine. "Tutok!" She came out of the brush so quickly that she must have been waiting nearby to see if I would return. I ran to the rock and put on the necklace and turned around for her to admire it. The beads made not 2 loops, but 3. They were long and oval instead of round, which is a very hard shape to make and takes much skill. "Winsha," she said. "Winsha," I said after her, the word strange on my tongue. Then I said the word that meant pretty in our language. "Wintai," she said and laughed because this was strange to her. She touched the necklace, giving the word for it, and I gave mine. We pointed out other things, the spring, the cave, a gull flying, the sun and the sky, Rontu asleep, trading names for them and laughing because they were so different. We sat on the rock until the sun was in the west and played this game. Then Tutok rose and made a gesture of farewell. "Mina," she said, and waited to hear my name. "Wanapele," I answered, which, as I have said, means the girl with the long black hair. I did not tell her my secret name. "Mena, Wanapele," she said. "Peseno, Tutok," I replied. Okay, I'm going to interrupt here just real quick. So she's very impressed by how many loops the necklace makes around her neck. That's how many times it goes around. So it's a very long necklace because it goes around 3 times. It says the girl was singing. Be careful you don't confuse singing with sign. They're very similar. Singing, she was singing. All right, to admire is to look at it because you like looking at it, to be impressed by it. Oval is the shape here. So we've got these shapes. We got the white shape here. We got this black shape, which is, of course, the color of the rock, the black oval. All right. Just coming back here, what do you think mena and peseno mean? I don't know if this is a real language. It seems like it might be made up. Scott Odell certainly doesn't know what language Karana spoke. Um, but so, but critical readers can still figure this out. We know that Wanapele is Karana's name. We know that Tutok is the name of the other girl. And so Mena Wanapele and Peseno Tutok. So what do you think those two words mean? From the context, we should be able to make a pretty good guess. All right. So I watched her go through the brush. I stood for a long time listening to her footsteps until I could hear them no more. And then I went to the headland and brought the baskets back to the cave. Tutok came again the next day. We sat on the rock in the bright sun, trading words and laughing. The sun went fast in the sky. The time came soon when she had to leave, but she returned on the day that followed. It was on this day, when she was leaving, that I told her my secret name. Karana, I said, pointing to myself. She repeated the word, but she did not understand what it meant. Wanapele, she said, frowning. I shook my head, pointing again to myself. I said, Karana. Her black eyes opened wide. Slowly she began to smile. Pese no Karana, she said. That night I began to make a gift for her in return for the necklace she had given me. At first I thought I would give her a pair of my bone earrings, but remembering that her ears were not pierced, and that I had a basket of abalone shells already flaked into thin discs, I set about making a circlet for her hair. I bored 2 holes into each of the discs, using thorns and fine sand. Between them, I put 10 olivella shells, which were no larger than the tip of my little finger, and threaded them all together with sinew. I worked 5 nights on the circlet, and on the 5th day, when she came, I gave it to her, putting it around her head and tying it in the back. Winsha, she said, and hugged me. She was so pleased that I forgot how sore my fingers were from boring the holes in the hard shells. To bore is to dig and to make a hole. So she's kind of using a drill here almost with her hand so she can put them on this string. Many times she came to the cave, and then one morning she did not come. I waited for her all that day, and at dusk I left the cave and went to the ledge where I could watch the ravine, fearing that the men had learned that I lived here and would find me. That night I slept on the ledge. The night was cold with the first wind of winter. Tutok did not return the next day, and I remembered that it was near the time when the Aleut hunters would leave. Perhaps they had gone already. That afternoon I went to the headland. I climbed the rock and crawled across it until I could look over the rim. My heart beat loud. The Aleut ship was still there, but men were working on the deck, and canoes were going back and forth. The wind blew hard, and few bales of otter skins lay on the shore, so probably the ship would leave at dawn. It was dark when I got back to the ravine. Since the wind was very cold, and I was no longer afraid that the Aleuts would find me, I made a fire in the cave and cooked a supper of shellfish and roots. I cooked enough for Rontu and me, and for Tutok. I knew Tutok would not come, yet I put her food beside the fire and waited. All right, what do you think that means? She says, I knew she would not come, yet I still put food out for her. Once Rontu barked, and I thought I heard the sound of footsteps, and went to the opening and listened. I waited a long while and did not eat. Clouds moved from the north, covering the cold sky. The wind grew louder and made wild noises in the ravine. At last I closed the mouth of the cave with stones. At dawn, I went to the headland. The wind had died. Fog lay over the sea, washing against the island in gray waves. I waited a long time for a glimpse of Coral Cove, but finally the sun burned away the fog. The little harbor was deserted. The Aleut ship with its red-beaked prow and red sails had gone. At first, knowing that I could now leave the cave and move back to my house on the headland, I was happy. But as I stood there on the high rock, looking down at the deserted harbor and the empty sea, I began to think of Tutok. I thought of all the times we had sat in the sun together. I could hear her voice and see her black eyes squinting closed when she laughed. Below me, Rontu was running along the cliff, barking at the screaming gulls. Pelicans were chattering as they fished the blue water. Far off, I could hear the bellow of a sea elephant. But suddenly, as I thought of Tutok, the island seemed very quiet. So that's kind of sad. She made this great friend, but now her friend is gone. All right, so Karana made her a gift to give to her new friend. It said supper. So we're looking at supper, not super. The difference is the two P's. Supper, which means dinner. And then bellow for the big elephant seal. That's not what an elephant seal sounds like, but to bellow is to shout, to yell, to make a loud noise. All right, so Karana is now all alone once again. Kind of sad. Okay, chapter 23. It's real short. We're going to press right on into it. The hunters left many wounded otter behind them. Some floated in and died on the shore, and others I killed with my spear, since they were suffering and could not live. But I found a young otter that was not badly hurt. It lay in a bed of bull kelp, and I would have paddled by it if Rontu had not barked. A strand of kelp was wound around its body, and I thought it was sleeping. For often, before they go to sleep, they anchor themselves in this way to keep from drifting off. Then I saw there was a deep gash across its back. The otter did not try to swim away as I drew near and reached over the side of the canoe. They have large eyes, especially when they are young, but this one's were so large from fear and pain that I could see my reflection in them. I cut the kelp that held it and took it to a tide pool behind the reef, which was sheltered from the waves. The day was calm after the storm, and I caught 2 fish along the reef. I was careful to keep them alive because otter will not eat anything that is dead, and left them in the pool. This was early in the morning. That afternoon I went back to the pool. The fish had disappeared and the young otter was asleep, floating on its back. I did not try to treat its wound with herbs because salt water heals, and the herbs would have washed off anyway. I brought 2 fish every day and left them in the pool. The otter would not eat while I was watching. Then I brought 4 fish, and these also disappeared, and finally 6, which seemed to be the right number. I brought them whether the day was calm or stormy. The otter grew, and its wound began to heal, but still it stayed in the pool, and now when I came it would be waiting for me and would take the fish from my hand. The pool was not big, and it came easily, and it could easily have got out and away into the sea. Yet it stayed there and slept or waited for me to come with food. The young otter now was the length of my arm and very glossy. It had a long nose that came to a point and many whiskers on each side and the largest eyes I have ever seen. They would watch me all the time I was at the pool, following me whatever I did. And when I said something, they would move around in a very funny way. In a way, too, that made pain come to my throat because they were gay and also sad. For a long time, I called it Otter because I called Rontu Dog. Then I decided to give the otter a name. The name was Manani, which means little boy with large eyes. It was a hard task catching fish every day, especially if the wind was blowing and the waves were high. Once, when I could catch only two and drop them into the pool, Manani ate them quickly and waited for more. When he found that was all I had, he swam around in circles, looking at me reproachfully. The waves were so high the next day that I could not fish on the reef or even at low tide. And since I had nothing to give him, I did not go to the pool. It was 3 days before I could catch fish, and when I went there again, the pool was deserted. I knew that he would leave someday, but I felt bad that he had gone back to the sea and that I would never catch fish for him again. Nor would I know him if I saw him again in the kelp. For now that he had grown and his wound had healed, he looked like all the others. Soon after the Aleuts had left, I moved back to the headland. Nothing had been harmed except the fence, which I mended, and in a few days the house was the same as before. The only thing that worried me was that all the abalones I had gathered in the summer were gone. I would need to live from day to day on what I could catch, trying to get enough on the days when I could fish to last through the times when I could not. Through the first part of winter, before Monane swam away, this was sometimes hard to do. Afterwards, it was not so hard, and Rontu and I always had enough to eat. While the Aleuts were on the island, I had no chance to catch little smelts and dry them. So the nights that winter were dark, and I went to bed early and worked only during the day. But still I made another string for my fishing spear, many hooks of abalone shell, and last of all, earrings to match the necklace Tutok had given me. These took a long time, for I searched the beach many mornings when the tide was out before I found two pebbles of the same color as the stones in the necklace, and soft enough to cut. The holes in the earrings took even more time, for the stones were hard to hold. But when I was done and had rubbed them right in fine sand and water and fastened them with bone hooks to fit my ears, they were very pretty. On sunny days, I would wear them with my cormorant dress and the necklace and walk along the cliff with Rontu. I often thought of Tutok, but on these days especially, I would look off into the north and wish that she were here to see me. I could hear her talking in her strange language, and I would make up things to say to her and things for her to say to me. All right, so she's got an otter here. Here's an otter playing basketball. So cute. All right, but the otter unfortunately was injured. And so you can kind of imagine, probably not this big, but there would have been like sort of a little pool here in which the otter could swim around all by itself. And she would bring some fish and throw them in for the otter to eat. This way, the otter was protected from the ocean. This way, the otter was protected from other predators. Glossy is that very shiny color. So here's this glossy ball. You can see the reflection of the lights. Think about the otter's skin and how glossy and shiny that is, smooth. Okay, talking about pronouns and antecedents. So if we look at this sentence, it has a long nose that came to a point and many whiskers on each side and the largest eyes I have ever seen. They would watch me all the time. They is the plural pronoun, and it refers to plural things. They, in this case, refers to the eyes. So it's not always going to refer to a person. So pay careful attention as you are reading what words are connecting. They would watch me all the time. I was in the pool, following me, whatever I did. And when I said something, they would move around, so the eyes again. Okay, reproachfully, a look that says you're blaming someone or sad about it. You didn't bring me enough fish. I've gotten used to lots of fish. Okay, so pay attention right now. I'm going to give a quick summary of the 2 chapters we read, because then you're going to write a short summary. So in chapter 22, Karana and Tutak meet and become friends, and they share words, and they laugh, and they give each other presents, the necklace, and then the headband that Karana made. And then in the next chapter, well, the Aleuts leave, Tutak leaves, Karana is all alone. But then she finds a wounded otter, and she helps the otter. She feeds the otter. She names the otter. So Karana is all alone again, but she did make a friend with Tutak, and that was nice. And she took care of the otter, which was very nice. Okay, we are definitely coming to the end. I hope you enjoyed this. And so it's a good chapter. So make sure you can always listen to this again so that you can write your summary well. Okay? All right. That's all for now. Take care. Bye.